Okay, that was very kind to me. They're working on a coffee. Okay, so let's see what the Gemara says over here. So we started off with this shaila. We had this shaila with Rab Chia Bar Avin asked Rava. Someone said, "This kikar, my kikar, should be also to you," and then I turn around and I give it to you. What do I mean when I say kikri alecha? Do I mean this kikar while it belongs to me, and therefore if I'm giving it to you as a gift, now it's yours, it's going to be mutter, or do I want this kikar to remain usher forever? And on that, Rav answered, think about it. Why in the world is he making this isser? If he's planning to keep it, you're not going to be able to eat it anyway. So obviously, if I'm trying to answer the kikar, I'm trying to answer it even if I give it to you, because you might be bothering me. Thank you so much. You might be bothering me. You might be bothering me because you want my kikar. I don't want to give it to you. So I would make a nether, and if I give it to you, it's going to be awesome. Because why else would I make the nether? Am I making the nether because you might steal it from me? Obviously not. So that was Rava's response. So Rav Chia answered back to Rava, maybe if you give it to me, there you intend for it to be mutter to me. Your nether is only going to cover the azminayala. And there's a machlekes ran and mefarish how to understand this. So this is what we left off with yesterday. So Amar leila fukadi azminayala kloimar la'olam eimalach the yoyv lebematana sharilay. Maybe when I said kikri alecha, I meant while it belongs to me. But if I give it to you as a gift, of course I want you to be able to have it, and I don't want my isser to be there. So what am I trying to answer? If I invited you to come visit me, to enjoy the kikar by my house, that will be usher that he shaita nami kikrahi. If I don't give it to you, rather you come and eat it by me, then you're eating my kikar. If I invite you to eat in my house, then what you're eating is my kikar. But if we look at the mefarish, he has a. I want it to be us. I don't want you to come and eat the kikar by me. So I'm answering it on you. I don't even want to go there because once I entertain a kasha, the whole masechta shouldn't go fake. Because there's a lot of the durim that we don't really understand why someone would do that. But al kapunim, what he's doing is lav davka. Like I said, I don't understand the psyche of all these people. But look at the Mefarish says. The Rab said, when you're eating it by me, it's mine, and that's where I intend to answer it. The Mefarish says, Lo ilafuki de azmin elei lemechal me'ahu kikar me'ikara. I invited you first. Please come to my house and enjoy this kikar with me. And then after he sat down and he's already has the kikar on his plate and he's ready to put it into his mouth, kikri alecha. Then he said, "Oh, it's also to you." Right? That's like when you close your eyes and you're putting your fork into your mouth and whatever is on it falls off, and then you bite into the middle. Right? The hasam kivand azmnele zuktim afarish. Once you invited him to your house and he's now in your house, kana chelkoi kama shu yochol lechol heimena. Whatever the guest is going to eat, he's kind. So if you have someone as a guest in your home, whatever he's going to eat is his. He's not eating your food. He's eating his food because you're already giving it to him from before. And therefore, you cannot say the kikar should be aser because it's too late. It belongs to him already. The lab kula de noisenu. The entire kikar doesn't belong to the noisen anymore. The part that the guest is going to eat is already his. Elagam de mezumin, it also belongs to the invited guest. Right. It's in here. Yeah, if it was the paskin that if you go to a wedding, you could not take something home because what you're going to eat is what you're going to. But this is what I mentioned earlier is Nagei Lamaisa. That was a case that we discussed. If a guest is Makadish, another guest, there's a boy and a girl that are a guest in your house, and he takes his piece of potato kugel and he tells the girl beside him, Harayat Mukadeshly, with this potato kugel. Is it a good Kedushin or not? Is the potato kugel his? What's more relevant is if you're a guest in someone's house, Pesach by night, and the matzah that we eat has to be lochem, it has to be your matzah. So you have to make sure to be koine that matzah before you eat it. So it's a machlokes if it's automatically yours or not. On the side that it's not automatically yours, you're going to have a specific amount of koine. You have to make a kinyan on it. Very good, very good. Now, I think it's the Magen Avraham who limits the scope of the machlokes. And he says the food that's on your plate, that's for sure yours. Everybody agrees it's yours. The shaila is the food that's in the center. The food that's in the center. And it's a mash like that from the Lashon Mefarish. Whatever I'm going to eat is mine. If it's on my plate already, I know I'm eating it. Even if it's in the middle, so they didn't plate the food. Rather, they put out platters of food in the middle that you're going to take from. Let's say you take from that platter directly and eat it, but you don't put it into your plate. That's where the shaila is, who owns it. So it's an interesting shaila. Okay, so now we have this machloikus, or the shaila that Rava Paskin, that Reb Chia bar Abba had a question on, and that is, when someone says kikar ze'alecha, does he have in mind that it should be ushered to him even after he gives it to him, or only while it's in the ownership of the madir? Zokt Gemara Esvei, Omar Loi, what if someone tells you, Hashieleni parasla, could you lend me your bull? I need it to plow. Let me have your bull. Omar Loi, I'll tell you, I can't lend you my bull. I need this bull, and I don't have any other bulls to lend you. If I had extra bulls, I'd be happy to lend you one, but I don't have any extra bulls. Omar Loi, he told him, Kainin para, Shani Kani Loch. Any para that I have should be usher banot to you, or in nichsi alecha, all of my possessions should be usher to you. Im yeshli para, if I have another para. I don't want to lend you my par because I need it, and I don't have another par. If you don't believe it, I don't have another par. If I have another par, it should be usher on you. Elazu, the only par I have is this one that I need. I cannot lend to you. Or what about hashileni kardumach? Someone says, "Can I borrow your axe?" Amar loy, kainim kardon sheyeshli. He take that the word sheyesh kainim kardum shani kanoi nichsi alai. Or all my nechashim should be usher im yeshli kardim elazeh, if I have any other kardim. V'nimza sheyeshli, and it turns out that he has, meaning now he's made a proper neder to usher all of his nechashim or his kardim or his porah on the person who wanted to borrow it. So the halach is b'chayav, as long as the madir is alive, usher, it is usher for the other person to have an off. Mace, what if he died? So now it's not his anymore. It'll belong to his Yorshim. Or he gave the person who he was madir, he gave that to him as a gift. So this is very black and white. You told somebody that my item should be asur bahana to you, and then you turn around and give it to him. And what does the Brisa say? It's mutter. So obviously, when I'm being madir somebody, I don't have in mind to asur him only while it's still mine. That is the Gemara's raya. Let's see the Heligram. There was a para there. Can I just finish the kasha? This para should be asnu bada. Imani kanisi ela parazu. Climber the ena pnuya kadagamri. I don't have any extra for you. Nichti alacha amay nechashim should be asnu to you. Im yeshli para elazu. If I have anything else, I should also love kol nechashim. Im yeshli para elazu. So either I'm answering my para to him if I have an extra one, so I'm doing that to prove my point that I don't have an extra one, or I'm answering all my nechasim to him. So what is halacha? B'chayav aser. Im nimtza sheyesh li para acheres. I kar the macher, then his neder is chal. But meis I should nos naloi b'matana harei zamuter. Why? Mishum dechi meis. I should nos naloi b'matana. Loi parasoi v'loi kardumoi v'loi nechasavim. They're no longer his par, his ox, his nechasim. So therefore, the nether is going on his nechasim, not on the chasim that he has already given away, even to the mudar. Because shamadir nasan lemudar. At this point, the Gemara understands this brisa as saying that the madir gave it directly to the mudar, va'afilu hachi shari, and nevertheless, the Brisa says that it's mutter. The kasha the Rava the Aser. It's kasha according to Rava who said it was Aser.
What is it? The slacker of the owner
said koinen para shani koni loch. This any para that I have should be Aser to you if I have another para.
It's also to you.
I'm answering it to the person who wants to borrow it.
Right. So the loch is like for you it's also, not for me.
That's right.
And what's kuni?
If I have one, if I have another one. Imani kanisi. Imani kanisi, if I bought any other para besides this. Now there's a chamugnish.
Anything that I own should be also.
Well, you're talking about two different things. The condition is if I have another puda. What I'm answering, either I'm answering the puda or I'm answering al manichus. That's the side. Right. Right. That's a different nether. So there's two different. Either he said kaidim para, or he said nisri lecha, and the trigger is imyeshli para elazu. If I have another para besides this. So this is for effective kivik kasha. What was Rabba's whole reasoning to say that it has to be also? He said because when I answered this kikar, what did I mean? What are my options here? Did I answer it while I have it? Well, I have it. I don't need to answer it. How could you eat it? I have it. The only thing that you could understand that I'm answering it is because I want to give it to you, and then it'll be also for you to eat. If I'm not giving it to you, I don't have to answer it. I'm trying to answer it because I don't want to give it to you. So I'm going to tell you if I'm going to give it to you, it's going to be also. That was Rabba's whole logic. And when it comes to a kikar, what is the only use someone has in a kikar? Does someone have a noodle looking at a kikar, tickling the kikar? No, the whole anu sometimes a kikar is eating it. So there's only one option here. So Rabbi said because there's only one option, there's only one thing I could have meant, and that would be to answer this kikar on you, even if I give it to you. But by a para, there's more than one option of what tano could be, because the option could be for you to eat it, or the option means you'll keep it permanently, or the option could be for you just to borrow it. So maybe when I'm answering it that I'm not going to be able to give it to you. But who said I also mean that I'm not going to lend it to you? Because there's other options. So what's the whole right? Why is it shver on Rava? And this is the Gilei Yisas's kasha. So let's see the Heilig of Gilei Yisas. The kasha of the Rava Damar kasha li harava pashat. Rava's whole raya of what he meant by his nether rak mikoy chaychacha because of a process of elimination. What else could he have meant? The ilu kikri alecha lafukemai. What else did I mean to answer when I said kikri alecha? Ucha de pirush aran la'il. Just like the Ram explained earlier. V'zeu shayich bekikar. That only makes sense by a kikar. Distam hanos kikar rak la'achila. What do you have a kikar for? Only for achila. So then there's only one option. If I'm giving it to you, it's going to be also. And that's why Rabbi said it's also. But when you're talking about an ox or a axe, this doesn't apply. The ba lafuke va'oicha para shaloi alter lashiloi lehenesimena. I could refer to. I'm answering it while this par belongs to me. I'm prohibiting you from borrowing it. But who said if I actually give it to you, it's not yours? Therefore, in Kenya Shleimar, the Rava Maidabazeh, the mutter b'noisin b'matana. Rava would agree in the case of the Brisa that if you're actually giving it, it's going to be mutter because your nether only included that while you own it, you won't lend it. But if you actually gave it to him, who said it would be asad? Rava is only saying that if you give it to him, it's going to be asad because there was no other choice. One other option, you can't lend somebody a kikar. No one borrows a kikar. So therefore, it had to mean you're asking. You had to have meant that you're asking it even by giving it to him. But here we have another option. So, Frekter B'Kiva Eger, what is the kasha of the Gemara? Anyway, the Gemara answers it anyway, very simply. And for the Gemara, Amar Rab Acha Bereder Ravika Shenitna Lo Yidei Acher. You know what we're saying? What is a mutter? If you give it directly to him, of course it's going to be also just like Rabba said. This Brisa says it's mutter is because you didn't give it directly to the mudar, you gave it to somebody else first. Omer Rabashi Dekanami. It's even meduyak in the actual words of the Brisa, because I guess they must have had the kudos in their Torah Shabbat Peh, because it's shenitnaloi. It doesn't say oishenosnaloi b'matana. It says I should nitnu loy b'matana. So there must have been the kudos in the Kabbalah of the Teshuvah, but like I don't shonosnu.
Third party is fine.
Yeah. So once you give to a third party, it's bottle.
Yeah.
You want to know why it's not pshita? I hear the chiddush is maybe that my kavanah wasn't that no matter what it should be also to you. I don't know. I hear your heart. So let's see what the Ran says. Shenasnu le'achar shenasnu madir le'inish alma the achar nasnu zel lemudar they kanam the knon shenasnu loy kloy mishakacha is a kabbalah biyadam likrois nasnu bechirik aval pish ein beksiva shum hefresh. Even though in the written the word without the kudish you would never know. L'inin halacha kamelon aval gav the yav nehele b'matana aser we pass like Rava ta'achi poshet like Rava vasikna dekanami and we even said dekanami because of a Rashbazal the chihech the yav b'matana aser put in the mlachai mudir mimenu if the mudir bought it directly from the madir it would also be also the chatayim of it.
So my child is good back. I'm thinking that when I borrow weiß mit Gott Apotheken, Gott besucht, ich habe es mit Matuna bekommen mal von Ribbes. Aber nicht, sondern eigentlich hat nicht gebracht, mit Ribbes weiß, denkt es so und er schafft es so. Das heißt nicht geborgen.
I'm not sure what you're driving at.
But look, do so there were other options.
If Kiveger says I can lend it or I can give it. Right? But there's options, so therefore maybe I only meant to answer it while it still belongs to me. Lav after that I mean to answer it while I'm giving it away.
When I borrow, when I learn the price, maybe that's richtig, and obviously it's good. So they found maybe I like some bread.
So what is your question about that?
So then these are borrow.
I don't know. I don't know.
Maybe it's also such a kind of
Okay,
you don't but you have to give back. So
I hear.
the same thing like the car.
Okay, good. So let's see the more about it. Boy minei Rav Mir Abnach.
If you have them, so they don't have to because there's person to it. So that's why it could be the bride, isn't it? If you know how that is.
I hear. Okay, boy minei Rav Mir Abnach. Rav had a shayla from Abnach. Yesh meila b'kainam lois. If there's an isher kainam, is there meila? So let's see what the shayla is. Yesh meila b'kainam is. Ha'isher davar alav b'kainam. I said, "Kainim kikar zeh alai, v'nehenem imenu," and then I had enough of it. Mi mechayiv meila alai. Would there be a chiv meila or not? Mi aminu, do we say the osik a carbon, he minted a carbon, the chayiv alav asham meila, kenehenem and akochim or not? So there's actually a whole shayla in the Chronim. The stipler declares. I looked it up with the stipler yesterday because when I bought my stipler years ago, the stipler's daughter, they made me promise that I would learn every sefer. So now that I'm learning that, I try to look at one shtickle by every mesechta, so at least I'm not a liar. So the stipler wants to know the shayla yeshemila b'kanomas. If I answered it on everybody, and it has a din of a carbon, there he declares that maybe everybody holds over there the yeshemila. The shayla is yeshemila b'kanomas. If you only made an isser on one person, do you say over there that there's a din meila? And it's going to come out clear as we learn the Gemara more. So let's assume now, I might be wrong, but let's assume now that the shayla is the Baal Torah is not clear. It could be referring to all if I made a koinim to everybody, or if it could refer if I only made a koinim on one person. But we'll see soon that everybody seems to agree that if you made a koinim on everybody, it has the din of a carbon and there is mila. But let's see the Gemara.
My shayla is. When the chum made wood, whatever reason this must come out, the person that is saying that, it should be also on you or on everybody.
But the Torah tells us what the halach is when someone does that. So it's not necessarily told in your kavanah. Once you say it should be a carbon, what is halach? So let's see the Gemara. So Rav Nachman said, it's a Mephorisha Mishnah. We learned in our Mishnah that if it's normal, where you give the finder a reward, it should go to hektish. So you see that we consider an isser nether like hektish. Ma hektish yesh pamila, afkanamish yesh pamila. So you're going to ask, I don't understand. All it means over there is you're not allowed to keep the money. Because if you keep the money, you're having enough from the person who gives you. Who said it has to do with hektish? It just means you got to get rid of the money. Zok Ran, People don't know hektish. Remember hektish. Diloi dami kainomos hektish. If you don't have a raya from that Mishnah that we just had, that kainomos have a din of hektish, it should have said you're not allowed to have enough in the money. What is the Gemara? What's the Gemara's typical term that it uses when you have money that you're not allowed to have enough from? It's yoylech hano liyamelech. Have a leila meimar yoylech hano liyamelech. If all the Mishnah was trying to teach us that you're not allowed to have benefit from it, the standard term used in Mishnayos, where you're not allowed to have enough from something, is yoylech hano liyamelech. Yamelech is highly corrosive, and it's even if you put a coin there, it will dissolve. Why did our Mishnah use a lotion of give it to hektish? It's element of the kainamois yeshban meila hektish. Since kainamois has to do with hektish, there's meila. Even if a hektish osik, since we're talking about hektish, therefore tana tipol hanol la hektish. That's why our Mishnah uses a lotion of hektish, because that's really what an isra no of a kaidim creates. It creates a hektish. I just want to point out that the Mishnah we learned is not speaking about someone who made something usher to everybody. It's speaking about somebody who made something usher only to one person. So that supports that the shaila here is, even if it was a kaidim on an individual, there's still this shaila of if there's meila.
That's where something is usbanu of everybody. But right? Don't waste it. Don't be impossible.
I hear. Okay, I hear. So let's see the Gemara right here. Kidanoi. The Gemara wants to say that it's actually a machlokes tonight. Koinim kikas or hektish. If someone said this kikar should be also like hektish, and the Ram explains what did he mean when he said koinim kikas or hektish. So asra bekoinim lekoil. He answered it with a koinim to everybody. Kehektish shu asra lechaladim, like hektish that's asra to everybody. The achla, and either he and someone ate it. Bein hu bein chaverei. It doesn't matter who ate it. Moal, there's a din meila, and since there's a din meila on it, means it has the regular din of a regular piece of hektish. Lefichach yesh lapidyon. Therefore, you could be paid because hektish you could be paid. Zokteran achla bein hu bein chaverei moal yesh meila bekanamais. Lefichach yesh lapidyon kivan the mitzar akula alma kehektish toughest pidyon. What about kikazu alai hektish? What if he says this kikar should be only for me hektish, not for everybody else? And he ate it. Because it's not usher to his friend. And since it's not usher to his friend, it's not like hektish. So this is very clear. According to Reb Meir, there's a din of meila by kainamais if it's an isser to everybody, but not if it's an isser to one specific person.
Because you can't redeem it anymore.
Correct. Even though it's only usher to him, but he himself will be moil. But so this is a very important word. If it's only usher to you and not to somebody else, it's a weaker type of isser. It's not as strong as regular hektish because it's only usher to you, not to everybody else. To be typhus, it's pigeon. The Chacham argue, there is no meila at all by kabbanis, by kainamais, l'vishein meila by kainamais. The Chacham argue, ben kach l'vishein meila by kainamais, ben b'kainim kloli, she'asar l'koil, ben b'kainim prati. Well, the Indian halacha, very important, Dr. Ran. Kaim along Reb Meir, the yesh meila by kainamais. We pass on Reb Meir that there is meila by kainamais, and of course only if you assered it on everybody. The Reb Nachman pashat le'lerava mimasnishin sheyesh meila, because Reb Nachman was pashat. Like we just saw here, that is yesh meila. Nami mapchina under Reb Meir l'Rabbanan. You might ask, it's Reb Meir who holds yesh meila b'kainomis, not the Chachamim, but in Shvuah Shtayim Basra, the Gemara actually flips it around and learns that it was the Rabbanan who said that there's yesh meila b'kainomis. Tilach chayman yesh meila. The kaimal nami, the kaidim kloli yesh le'pinyan. We also learn from here that if you make something usher to everybody, you can actually redeem it. And this is the Ram. I made a mistake. The stapler is referring to this tickle. Mistapkali, Zokti Ram, I have a suffix. Mandamol b'kainomis. Someone who's moil and kainomis, imisteri hahu kainim levasu demol kehektish sheyosel l'chulay demiila. The halacha is if you're moil behektish, that item that you were moil that you had enough from is now chulin. Doesn't need to be nipped anymore. It's now chulin. So the Ran wants to know, here we have a Shaila, if Yesh Mila B'Kanamais, the Ran wants to know if you violate the Kainim, does it automatically go off? And this is where the Stadler was clearing, is the Ran clearing only by something that's also to everybody, or maybe he's clearing even by something that's only also to one person. And his Shaila is, if it's also to everybody, then it'll have a din of Kedushas Domim, because there's no such thing as Me'ilah on a carbon. You could only be moil on something that belongs to Hektish with Kedushas Domim, not with Kedushas Aguf. So he says that if something is also to everybody, it's just like Kedushas Domim in Hektish, and it's logical to assume that maybe once the Me'ilah happens, the Kedusha goes off. But something that you can't be paida, which is something that was only usher to you, that should be like Kedushas Aguf, where there's no din Me'ilah, and if you have enough of it illegally, it doesn't go l'chulin. But then the Stapler wants to say there's a very big difference between Kedushas Aguf and something that's only usher to you. Kedushas Aguf is a more severe type of Kedusha. You can't be paida. So maybe that's why if you're moil, it doesn't go l'chulin. Sure, if you only made something us to yourself, it's not like Kedushas Domim, and therefore, ain't no pigeon. But it's because it's weaker, not because it's stronger. And that's what the Ran says earlier, Deloy Alim kehektish limitless pejoina. So maybe over there as well, by an individual Isser, if you were over on the Isser, maybe the Kedusha should go off by itself as well, like the Ran. So the Stapler is clearing, when the Ran clears whether or not the Kedusha goes off after your over koinim, is it only by something that's usher to everybody, which has all the properties of Me'ilah, or does it even apply with something that's only usher to you? Okay, let's see that more about it.
That's only if I violated, or I could be pointed before I violated.
It means before you violate it. The Gemara is not discussing at all what happens if you violate it. That's the Ran Shaila. Amalei Abacha Barei Rabbi Avi Rabashi. Kikri Alecha. If I said my kikar should be usher to you, v'nosna loy b'matana, and then I gave it to the person b'matana, we've already established it's still usher to the person that I'm giving it to. Right? That was Rabbi's psak. So there's an isser now. So mimal, who was moil? Limoil noisin. Is it the person who gave it to the person who was usher to? The person who gave it is the mother. There's no isser on him. Haloyasirle. Limoil makabel. You want the person who received it to be moil? Yochel, he could say, Yochel the Amar, Heter ba'isi, Yisur lai ba'isi. If I would have known that this is usher on me, I don't want this. So I don't want to be kodesh. Amar lei, so Rav Ashi answered, Mikabel moel. The Mikabel is moel. He could say I don't want it. Liche sheyotzi, only after he uses it. And then he's moitzi. You're going to say he didn't know about it, so how could he be moel? Zok Gemara, that's how all Me'ilah works. Shakola moitzi mois hektish l'chulin, kisover shalchulin hu. Any case of Me'ilah, if you use moish hektish, of course, even if you don't know about it, moil, after moil, so too, this will have a din, Me'ilah as well. Okay, we're running late, so we're going to go back there. Dr. Helig Mishnah. V'tarim estrumasai. If he's not over, then there's no problem. Only if he's going to be over. V'tarim estrumasai. A person, this is continuing on to the Mishnah before. If Reuben says, Shimon, you may not have any anah from me, nevertheless, Reuben is allowed to go be mafresh truma on behalf of Shimon. Umasroisav, and he can also be term be mafresh maishris lidaitoi with his das. Whose das are we referring to? The das of the madir or the das of the mudar? We don't know yet. The Gemara is going to elaborate. Umakrib alav, and if he's a kohen, he's allowed to service this customer's karbanas. Umakrib alav kinei zavin, kinei zavais, kinei yoldois, which are the different types of birds that Mechusar Kippurim have to bring, like a Yoledes, like a Zov, and Chatois Vashamais and the Karban Chatas and Osham. Are these generic Chatois or Shamais? Are these Chatois and Shamais directly related to the Zavin and the Zavais and the Yoldois? That again the Gemara will discuss. Umalamdei Medrash, you're even allowed to teach somebody Gemara, Medrash, if he's not allowed to have enough from you. Halachas v'agodes. You're not allowed to teach him Chumash. And that we're going to see tomorrow why. Aval malama to his bonov his benois of mikra. His children and his sons and his daughters, I'm sure this will be a controversial Gemara, he's allowed to teach mikra. Zok the Helig Gemara. Iboyelu, they had a shaila. Hani kahani, these kohanim, I'm running late. Iboyelu, hani kahani, these kohanim, shlucha didan havu, when they do avoida, who are they working for? Are they working for the bialim of the karbonis, which is Klal Yisrael, and if it's a personal carbon, the person who brought the carbon, or shlucha d'shmaya, or is he working straight for the Rebbeinu Shalom? And the Ram speaks out that we already have the answer to the shaila in Kedushin, the Gemara Paskins, that they're shlucha d'rachmana. And what was the final proof in Kedushin that they're shlucha d'rachmana? The solka daitach shlucha didaninu. If you're going to think that there are shluchim, it cannot be. Mi kamidi da'anan loy matina lemeved ve'inu abdi. Is there any type of thing that you can't do it, but you can make a shlich to do it? There's no such thing. So therefore, the Gemara in Kedushin concluded that the shlucha d'rachmana. Yet the Gemara here is kicking around the shaila to see maybe we can bring a raya from our sugi as well. So Zok Gemara l'manaf kamina lemudra no. It makes perfect sense. If I'm a kohen and I'm not allowed to have an if I'm a kohen and I told Yisrael you may not have an from me. If the kohen is the shliach of the Yisrael, now if I'm doing your shlichus, I am giving you hana. The usher will be usher. But if I don't work for you, I work for the Rebbeinu Shalom as a kohen, then it will be mutter for him to do avoid it, even though the Yisrael may not have enough from him. My what's halacha toshma. That nan we learned in our very Mishnah. Makrib alov kinei zava. So you see, he can do karbonis. If there are shluchim, how could he be makar for them? Kinei zavim, he's causing them to have a no. In fact, the Gemara, anyway, it's fair. Because if we're talking about all generic karbonis, why did the Mishnah itemize specific karbonis that the kohen is allowed to be makrib on behalf of the Yisrael who's also to have enough from him? It should have stayed generic. Listening makrib, I love karbonis. All the Mishnah should have said was a makrib of karbonis. Why did the Mishnah get into a whole list of which specific karbonis the kohen is allowed to do? It must be that there's a reason why the Mishnah picked these specific karbonis, and it's because these specific karbonis don't need shlichus. The Amr Rabbi Yochanan hakol tzrich and das. Anytime you remark a carbon for somebody, you need to have das. But if it's mechusar kapara, then anybody could do it. You could bring karbonis for your children who are ktanim who have no das. So you see, you don't need das at a bailim to bring these specific types of karbonis. Shenemer zois teres azov ben gadol ben katan. So now you have a raya from our Mishnah Punkvakert. You have a raya that the shlucha didan, because the Mishnah purposely avoided selecting karbonos that are generic karbonos, because in fact those would have been a problem. The Mishnah Bedavka only listed karbonos that do not require the das of the bailim. Let's see the Heilig around. Ella mechusha kapor shani klemer v'adarabba tiv shoyt leidachisa. Now you have a raya to the other side. The kivin the tana mechusha kapor bilchut. Since the Tana was very careful to select specific karbonos only that a kohen can be makar on behalf of Bailam, they tzrichim das. What's unique about the karbonos listed in the Mishnah is that they don't need das. Mashma dafka hani mishum de'ein tzrichim das. Vade kohen las mechuzan gavit. So when they don't need das, there the kohen is not doing the shluchas in a Bailam. Avol b'shar karbonos that tzrichim das shluchim didanu. There are shluchim. The Eloi, because if you're going to say that there's shluchah de rachmana, even for regular karbonis, listing makrav of karbonis, it should have just said any karbonis the coin can be makrav. However, we're not 100% proven from this Mishnah. The ikal meimar, you could still come up with a doichik to avoid the raya. The tana mechusha kapara lashmina rabusa. It's kapped on mechusha kapara to tell you a different chiddush, not to exclude other karbonis. What's the special chiddush of mechusar kapara? Dafapisha matir lechol bekachim. These karbonis have a special impact. They're matter the person to eat kachim, unlike a regular carbon. L'chol shegem b'shar karbonis. With Rabbi Yochanan Ami, Damar Kol Tzrich Das, even from Rabbi Yochanan. Okay, we'll stop here and we'll go back. Elameata Rabbi Yochanan, according to Rabbi Yochanan, who says Zois Teres Hayaledes Ben Ketana Ben Gedoyla. So if you're going to learn, just like from Zois Teres Azov, you learn that it means even without das. So then Let's go to the Parsha of Yoledes. It says, Zois Torah Yoledes. Are you going to learn it the same way? Ben Katana, Ben Gedola, that a father could bring karbonos of Yoledes, or a husband could bring a carbon of Yoledes on behalf of his wife who's a Katana. Katana bas lady, a Katana cannot give birth. And I'm going to prove it to you that a Katana cannot give birth. But Tani Rav Bibi Kamed Rav Nachman, we had this many times. Sholosh Noshim Shemoshes B'moich. There's 3 types of women that are allowed to use contraceptives because we don't want them to get pregnant. Kitana, Uberis, Umanika. And they each have a very important reason why they cannot get pregnant. Kitana Shemet Isaber B'Thomas. A Kitana will die. So you see that a Kitana can't have a child, because if a Kitana has a child, the Kitana is going to die. So why do I need a pasuk to tell me that I could bring a carbon Shaloi B'das the Yoledes? If she's a Kitana, if there's a child, she would have died. There's no carbon necessary for a woman to die. Dr. Gemara, you're right. You have to learn from Zois Torah Yoledes that you could bring a carbon without das. It can't be referring to a Ketana, because in fact the Ketana can have children. Hahi Zois Torah Yoledes is to tell you ben pikras ben shoita. A husband can bring a carbon for his wife, even if his wife is a shoita, and she normally wouldn't bring up to bring a carbon for herself. He can have her das. She can other maybe carbon al ishtay shoita. Since a person can bring a carbon for his ishtay shoita, kediv Rabbi Yehuda, Titania Rabbi Yehuda Aimer, other maybe carbon asher al ishtay. Normally, a woman is an ani because whatever she has belongs to her husband. Yet, when the husband brings a carbon, he can even bring the carbon of an usher if he's an usher, because we know by the karbonos of Yoledes, the Torah tells us that according to how wealthy you are, that's what type of carbon you bring. If you're very poor, you bring a mincha. If you're intermediate, you bring birds, and if you're wealthy, you can bring animals. So a person can bring a carbon usher lishtoi, v'chol karbonos, why? V'chol karbonos shechayeves, and he can also bring on behalf of his wife all the karbonos that she's chayiv, shekach choysav lo, because he writes her in the ksuba, v'acharayis tislach alai min kadam adana. When he gives her a get and he pays off her ksuba, and she writes him the receipt. In the receipt, she writes that from here on forward, you don't have to pay for my karbonos. So from that nusach of her receipt, we know that a husband would bring karbonos on behalf of his wife, and that's what Zois Torah Yoledes is there to tell us, not necessarily a Ketana. Well, let's see the Heilige Ram. Let's see the Heilige Ram. Hahi Zois Torah Yoledes ben Pikas ben Shaita, Shekinada maybe carbon al ishtay Shaita, Rabbi Yehuda Kloimer, Eloi Ashkechan, the other maybe carbon al ishtay. If we would have never found a pasuk that a person could bring a carbon for his wife, Loi have a Rabbi Shaita, we would have never known that a husband can bring a carbon for his wife who's a Shaita. The Laman Kabazar Rechmanav, who's the Torah going to tell to bring this carbon? Vishlam of a Katan, Lavul Kamazar. I understand by a Katan, the father could be telling the father to bring the carbon. Allah Shaita Laman, if someone's an adult Shaita, who is the Torah being mitzvah to bring this carbon? Well, Hashadam Rabbi Huda, the other maybe carbon al Ishtoi. Now that Rabbi Huda tells us that someone could bring a carbon for his wife, Ikala Ukmikra, the Zois Torahs, which we were using before for Ketana. But since the Ketana can't give birth, we can apply it to Yoledes Shoita. Shedanu Tzrich and Daita. We don't need her das to bring the karbonos on her behalf. Elo das habal. Even she may be carbon herself. Hachigashin. The Tanya other may be carbon asher al lishtoi. The whole karbonos shichayeves. Amar Yehuda lefichach in patra einoi chayev b'achriyuson. Once he divorces her, he no longer has to pay for her karbonos. Shekach koseves lo yachrayis disli olach. Min kadamana from here on, you don't have to pay. Other maybe carbon usher lishtoi. If his wife is a Yoledes, he can bring a carbon usher for her. Any woman who has a husband is automatically not rich. Because her husband always tells her we don't have enough money for that, right? Nevertheless, since her husband is an usher, maybe b'shvila carbon usher. If she's mechuyev a carbon, that's a variable rate, he will bring the carbon usher for her. Because a baal is mechuyev in the karbonos of his wife, such as a carbon of a Yoledes. Any karbonos that she's chayev, except for the darvin davos. Therefore, in patra, if he gave her a divorce, From then on, of course, she's not mechuyev for her kabbalah anymore. Shekach koseves loy b'shoiver shehi oisaloi b'shas gerishin miksubasa. When he divorces her and he pays off her ksuba, she writes him a receipt. Koseves loy, she writes shehi mecheles kol achrayis sheyesh la lov mikodim lachein. Any prior kabbalahs that she has, she's not demanding him to pay for them anymore. Yesh b'chalal loshen zah afilu kabbalahs. She says on Michael all achrayis. That even includes if he is an achrayis to bring a carbon on her behalf. Rabbi Yehuda Darish loshen hedjed. Rabbi Yehuda Darshins the loshen hedjed means for the fact that that's written in the ksuba. We in the receipt we actually say that means that he will be potter from here on paying for karbanis, but up until this point he did pay. In other words, everybody holds you could bring a carbon for your wife if she's a soiter. Rabbi Yehuda is just the one who said that after he divorces her, he doesn't have to do that anymore. And that takes us to the end of his stuff. I just wanted to mention today is the Yortzeit of the Marsha. The Marsha, his last name was Adels. And the reason why he took on the last name was Adels, because that wasn't really his last name, is because his mother-in-law supported him to open up a yeshiva. And he had huge akaras atoiv to his mother-in-law. And because of that, he took on as his last name Adels. And the Aleph of Marsha it's Mareinu Harav and Shmuel Eliezer Adels. So the Aleph is actually his last name. That's in the acronym of Marsha. The Marsha, he was the one who held that you're not allowed to say that any of the guys of the Gemara is not literal. There's a lot of Mefarshim. Dave Zolti always tells us what Mefarshim will say that certain guys of the Gemara are not literal. The Marsha fought against it. He said everything is real and literal, and he took great lengths to explain them. We always look up to Marsha whenever we have an Agadith Gemara. But the Marsha was a very high guy. And there's a story with the Marsha where there was a Rasha in his community who died, and there was a Talmud Chacham in the community that by the Levaya, before they buried this mace, this Talmud Chacham was Mavaza, this mace. You Rasha, you lowlife, whatever it is that he said. And this Talmud Chacham had a dream that night after the Kfura that you were Mavazami and I want to call you to the Torah. And he ignored it, but the dream kept on coming back and it was getting scary. And it reached a point where he started to get sick. This man was getting sick. So they were very concerned. So they came to the Marsha. So the Marsha said, have this man sleep in my house. And when he wakes up in the middle of the night screaming, and the Marsha knew already that he'll wake up in the middle of the night screaming. When he wakes up in the middle of the night screaming, call me right away. The Kachava, the Marsha comes, and the Marsha started talking to the Nifter and said, why are you tormenting this guy? So the Nifter says, why am I tormenting this guy? He was Mevazami, Barabim, I'm mourning him. So the Marsha says, but you're a Russia. So he says, that's not how they received me here. When I came up to Shemayim, they received me with the greatest of COVID. Do you know why? Because once in my life, I was walking down the river's edge, and there was a Talmud Chacham who was drowning. And I jumped in, and I risked my life, and I saved this Talmud Chacham. And because of that, it says if you're matzal nefesh achas miyisrael, it's like you're matzal kol olam kuloi. And not only that, I'm a Talmud Chacham here too. I got half of his Torah. So I'm actually love living with the Rosh Hashivas here. So I'm a knacker. So I'm a Talmud Chacham up here. I have a din of a Talmud Chacham, and you're a Mavazah Talmud Chacham. I'm money about being Mavazah Talmud Chacham. So the Marsha says, Rabbi, you're 100% right. But I want you to know that this desire that you have to prosecute this Eid is because the Sultan is trying to pull a fast one over you. And what he wants you to do is he wants you have a good time. You have every right to demand this guy's death because he was Mavazi. And if you call him to Torah, you're going to win, and this man's going to die. But then the Sultan's going to run back and open up your case and say, sure, he saved the Talmud Chacham, but he killed the Talmud Chacham. Now he's a Russia. So let me give you advice. Walk away from this case because you're going to win. But it's a ploy that the Sultan's using to neutralize your schusim. And it all went away. So that was the story with the Marsha. Schusa Yogan Aleinu I'll call Yisrael.
So